Hello everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Mel and welcome to my favorite vlog of the year. I love doing this video so much. It's always so much fun, and that is reading booktubers' favorite books. Last year, I was able to find two books that I absolutely loved, one of which was on my favorite books of the year, the other one which made it onto my most surprising books of the year, and I had such a good time with this, and you guys seem to really enjoy it as well. So I'm thrilled to be able to bring this back to you guys. But I didn't just want to do what I did last year. I didn't want to just make a list, go through people's favorites videos, pick 10 books that I wanted to read and read them and share them with you guys. No, we couldn't do that. We're going to use a spinner wheel and we're going to put everybody that I watch on it, and it's going to decide which booktubers for me. I say everybody I watch. It's actually not everyone that I watch, but it is most people. And I am honestly so excited for this. I think that there are some great booktubers on here. I cannot wait to see what is on everyone's list. I can't wait to see if I have to step out of my comfort zone and read something scary like I did last year. So I guess without further ado, let's do my first spin and see who we end up with. Okay, so we got Steph from Steph Loves. I'm pretty sure that she has a video out already, so we're gonna hide her slice so we don't get her again, and let me pull up her video. Okay, so I have looked through Steph's best books of the year list, and she has a lot on there that I've already read, but she also has a lot of romance on there, and you guys know that contemporary romance is sometimes a little harder for me to get behind. I don't read a lot of it. She has a couple of fantasy, and so I think the one that I'm gonna go with is Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree. I read Legends and Lattes last year, and I was not like obsessed with it. I'm not a huge cozy fantasy gal. I like a lot of stabby stab in my books, but it was cute, it was fun, I didn't dislike it. And Bookshops and Bone Dust is actually, I think, a prequel following the same character, if I'm not mistaken. And I have the book because I was interested in giving it a try, so I think that this is the perfect way for me to pick that up because I don't know when I would get to it otherwise. So thank you to Steph. We're gonna be starting with Bookshops and Bone Dust. I wanted to check in with you guys because I have now finished Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree. I don't think I told you guys what this was about the other day when I was at Mom's house, but this is following Viv, who is an orc, I believe, and she is basically like mercenary, and she's big and she's badass, but she gets injured and ends up making a mess of a bookshop and offers to help the raccoon of the bookshop who owns it kind of get her stuff back together. And there's also this necromancer plot that is hanging out in the background with people showing up dying and being brought back to life. This one I think I liked a little bit better than Legends and Lattes. I do feel like there was more of a centralized plot to this rather than just working and rehabilitating the bookshop, whereas Legends and Lattes is very much so about making this coffee shop and making this coffee shop thrive. It is extremely cozy with only a twinkle of plot, whereas I feel like Bookshops and Bone Dust did have more plot while still being a very cozy fantasy. It still is about 70% slice of life, probably 30% plot. So while I do appreciate what Travis Baldree does, I 100% see why people love this story. I think that if I'm gonna like a cozy fantasy, this is the one that I'm going to like. I also think that it's just really well written. However, it is way too much slice of life for me personally, so I think it's gonna get 3-star. I enjoyed it. I would recommend it to other people, but it just wasn't the best book for me, just simply because there wasn't a lot of just like huge plot going on. It was a lot of what Viv was doing, how she was feeling about things. There was also one thing in here that I did not really love, which had to do with the bookshops part, and I feel like as readers, we're expected to love books as part of a story, and sometimes it works for me, but most of the time I find that I don't really love it. And we have Viv reading these books as part of the story, but when she's reading, we're like getting these passages of the book and it's a romance, and I just didn't really love getting those passages of the book. I didn't really care, and so I would find myself zoning out during those parts only to not realize when we've actually flipped back to the regular book, the part that actually matters, and I was like, oh wait, let me reorient where I am because I zoned out during the parts that were passages from that book. I think that a lot of people will like this. I'm probably gonna have been the unpopular opinion there, but it really just pulled me out of the story, and I didn't feel like I needed it. I didn't feel like it added anything to the story overall. So yeah, I think this one is going to get a 3-star. But now to the exciting part for me, which is now that I have finished a book, I get to spin for another book. So let me pull up my spinner wheel and let's see who we end up with next. Okay, so next up we got Books with Lexi, which I'm so excited about because you guys know that I love me some Lexi and I love me a Lexi video. So I was really excited to be able to comb through her list. Fortunately, I did already kind of know what I was going to be picking for her because she had told me a couple of things that were on her list. And the one that she recommended, so I got a personal recommendation from Lexi, was Strange Sally Diamond by Liz Nougat. I already knew that this was one that I was really interested in after hearing her talk about it. I know that it is a slow psychological horror thriller that blends genres, which I am really interested in. I love a good psychological horror. She said she stayed up until 3 a.m. reading this book because she was absolutely hooked and needed to know what happened. I'm gonna start this tomorrow and I'm really excited to give it a go. I have a book update for you guys. I cannot believe that we are on the second book of this vlog and it is January 5th. Like, where has the time already gone? I have recently started Strange Sally Diamond by Liz Nougat. I'm really having a good time with this. I'm about 30% of the way into it so far. And I was talking with Lexi about how like twisted and interesting this book is while also being incredibly disturbing. This is about Sally, who has always been different. She's never really fit in and she's been told that she is socially deficient. And when her dad passes away, he leaves her a bundle of letters and she's supposed to open one a week after he dies. And this is going to basically tell her where she came from and why they adopted her. And there are some twisted things that are going down in this book. I don't really want to tell you a lot more than that. I think that this book is so interesting for me because I actually studied a case very similar to this in college. And so it's really cool to see this like fictionalized interpretation of something that unfortunately can happen. It's not been anything super recent, but either way, like it's still just super interesting to read about while also being incredibly disturbing. Definitely check trigger warnings if you have triggers. This book is full of them. Fortunately, I don't really have any triggers, so that wasn't an issue for me. But if it is an issue for you, I strongly recommend you looking them up because there are many triggers in this book. I have just gotten to the first like point of view type change in this, so I'm very excited to continue reading. I'm hoping that I love it. So far, don't quote me, but so far this has 5-star feels. Like, am I gonna find a 5-star book this early in the year? Alright guys, so I quickly wanted to give you my final thoughts on Strange Sally Diamond by Liz Nougat. I think I'm going to end up giving this 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. Well, enjoy might be an interesting word. I enjoyed it, but like it's twisted and it's messed up and it is horrifying and disturbing, but also so incredibly interesting. I don't know what it says about me that I think that twisted things are fascinating, but they really are, and found myself wanting to know what was going through these characters' heads. This is not the type of story that is a thriller in the way that there is going to be this shocking twist at the end, because that's not what this story is about. It's about what can happen to someone when they go through trauma and how our brains process these things and how it shapes us into the people that we are as adults depending on our upbringing. And I really felt like Liz Nougat did an amazing job covering all of that. I really believed Sally and Peter and their motivations and what they were going through and how they were handling things. I think that Sally was such a interesting character to read from. I think my biggest problems and the reason that this is going to get a 4-star instead of a 5-star, because I thoroughly enjoyed this book and would highly recommend it for fans of psychological thrillers or horror or fiction, psychological fiction, I don't know. But I think that my biggest issue with this one was just that the ending felt a little bit lackluster compared to the rest of the book. I didn't feel like it gave me this good punch that I wanted. There was actually something that I really wish we had done at the ending of this book that it didn't do, but that's okay. And I also feel like some of the motivations in certain characters, like we were flipping between Peter and Sally's point of view, and in Peter's point of view, were very coherent and everything was good, and not good, but like they had themselves together mostly. But then when we would flip into Sally's point of view, things would be completely different and people were acting psychotic, and it did not really make sense for the context of the character for me to be that different in 2 different points of view, because the timelines were relatively close together. And it felt like for me, it was just there to be a plot device. It was just there to kind of make sense for the story and make the author's life easier, when it would have been such a simple like 1-sentence plug of this is why this is the way it is. But overall, I really enjoyed this. One thing that I do want to mention is if you read the physical version, apparently there was a scene that was changed or removed via the US publishers because it was too graphic and too horrific. It is in the audiobook. I listened primarily to the audiobook, but if you are tandem reading, then know that that's a thing so it doesn't weird you out when it comes up. But also, I am really annoyed that they took out that scene. Honestly, it makes me mad because it was a pivotal scene, and it irritates me that traditional publishing feels like they have such restrictions and they have to be so like careful about what they publish that they can't put those kind of scenes in there. Sorry, we're gonna go on a soapbox here for a second. That's part of the reason that I read so much indie and so much self-published, is because they don't have to pull those punches, and I feel like it really added a lot to the story. Yes, it was hard to read. Yes, it was gut-wrenching. Yes, it was really disturbing, but it added so much to that character's depth and their motivations throughout the rest of the story. And without it, I'm just like, would the book have been as good? I don't know. And I wish that publishers did not feel the need to do that, because it would have been different if this was like a young adult story. Yeah, that might have been too graphic for a 14-year-old, but like, I'm an adult. I know when I pick up something that it's got adult themes in it, and this book is hard to read and has adult themes throughout the whole thing. So like, if you're gonna publish it at all, just leave the scene in there. Anyway, I digress. Quite enjoyed it. 4 stars. I'm so glad. She said she was really nervous because she personally told me, like, you need to read this one off of my list. So she was very happy to hear that I ended up enjoying this. So now we need to spin the wheel and find out who our next booktuber is going to be. Okay, so we got Rachel from Raven-Haired Reader. I'm so excited to be reading a book from Rachel because I have been in the biggest fanro mood lately. I have been dying to read me some romantasy, and she had 2 romantasy on her list that I could pick from, the first of which was Heavenly Bodies, and then Fear the Flames, I believe, as well. Fear the Flames is actually getting a traditional publication date, and I'm so happy for these authors to see that fantasy romance is getting so big, and the self-published community are pushing the boundaries and setting those trends to the point where traditional publishers want to pick them up. Imagine that. I do think from her Instagram post there was a relatively decent amount changed and polished and made the book a lot more cohesive and the pacing a lot better. So I actually think I might want to wait for the traditional published version just because the author feels like it's a better book. So I'm going to, I think, wait on that one and read Heavenly Bodies instead. I don't know much about this book, so once I have started it, I will let you know. I'll know that there are some celestial themes, and I've heard some really, really incredible things about this book. So I am so glad that I get to read some fantasy romance, because honestly, that is all I've been in the mood for lately. Hi friends, so I wanted to update you because I've now started Heavenly Bodies, which is Rachel from Raven-Haired Reader's pick, and let me just tell you, I'm having a great time with this so far. I actually started reading this, got through about the first chapter and went, I'm gonna love this book, immediately put it down, picked up my phone and ordered it on Amazon because I knew that I was going to want to annotate this, and I have gotten a little bit further. That's part of the reason I'm reading on my Scribe, because I am annotating as I go on the Scribe. You can take notes and highlight stuff on here, and then I will transfer the annotations over to the physical book when I get it. Pray that it is not a soppy, disgusting mess when I get home tomorrow, because we're supposed to get a ton of rain and I'm gonna be so sad if my copy is ruined. But I'm having a fantastic time with this so far. It's following a princess who has left her home for some mysterious reason and fled to seek refuge in a different kingdom of Helios. And she is requesting refuge from the king and the king's son, who is like the lion of Helios. And he is snarky, he is an asshole, he is God's gift to women, and she can't stand him. And I am eating up every second of it. I'm having a great time with the banter between these two. There's one point in chapter 4, because I'm only like 10 or 15% of the way. It's a very long book. But there's one point in chapter 4 where she says, I'd rather let a winged lion maul me to death than set foot in your bedroom. Yes, girl. It's great. We're getting training scenes, we're getting different kinds of magic and a lot of really cool world, and I think a political setup. There's going to be a prophecy, which could be hit or miss, but I am having a fantastic time so far. Right now it is pretty fast paced, but I'm not sure if the romantic relationship is going to be fast paced. So if it's just the plot, I could have a really good time with that. If the romantic relationship gets rushed, then I could struggle a little bit, but I haven't really gotten to the point where it feels rushed yet. So hopefully I will just continue to enjoy it, because I'm having a fantastic time so far.
I would do anything just to get you back again. I would do anything at all. I know I'm not innocent, you deserve a better man, but let me just hold your hand once more. Ooh, 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 I wanna take you out
200 pages or so into Heavenly Bodies, and I'm still having a really good time with this. I think that the banter is a lot of fun. I think that the world building is really interesting. I definitely want to know more about these stars and what exactly, I think they're gods, but I feel like that's a little bit unclear, and I'm curious to see like how the plot moves forward, because right now we have had a lot of her training and learning to use her magic and like setting up their relationship and stuff like that, but I don't feel like we've gotten a lot in the way of just like solid plot, even though this book is moving really, really quickly. And I think we talked about that before, but their relationship is progressing a tad bit faster than I would like for it to. I think that if spend a little bit more time hating one another for one, and then maybe learning to respect one another before they thought that the other one was hot, I don't know. But like Enzo is hot, so I get it. I would have liked a little bit more time for that. I also am a little bit irritated, and like this is not a big deal, but she spells things really weird, and I don't think that there's a reason for it. Like dragon is dragon, like with a U, and magic has a K on the end, and it's not a big deal, but it's just like, why? Because it's kind of taking me out of the story every time I see it, which is a little bit annoying, but like it's not a big deal, but it is a little bit annoying. Anyway, I am annotating this, obviously, as you guys can see. My copy did not drown, which is always good. I'm just highlighting and writing in it as I feel that I should. I don't know. I feel like I need a 101 on what to annotate and how, because I'm still kind of learning that and what to highlight, what to underline, that kind of thing. So I'm still getting used to that. For now, I'm using purple for her and more blue for him type stuff. And then we also have these as my tab colors. And I ended up going with Enzo as the light blue, Alara, I think is her name, as the light purple. Then we have like moments between them, like sweet moments or relationship moments. And then this one, the darker blue, I think is emotional damage, which we have not gotten to yet, but I'm sure it's coming. This navy blue is world building, and then this purple one is like banter between the two of them. So I'm pretty happy with the way these look so far. Literally, I'm like 3 more pages in than I was just a second ago, but I love Alara, and I really, really like some of the quotes and some of the things that she says about being a woman and having expectations put upon you. So they're training, and he tells her that she should start wearing practical things, and she's like, I'm probably gonna have to fight while I'm in a dress. And he scoffs at her, and she says, chances are I'm gonna be in dresses a lot of the time, so I choose to practice fighting in one. A woman can be both, you know, soft and fierce. She doesn't have to choose. Yes, girl. Good morning, friends. I am currently still in my PJs because we have a delayed opening this morning to a lot of ice and snow on the roads. We don't usually get this cold of weather in Alabama. It's like 12 degrees here, and that does not happen ever. I was actually kind of miffed because we were supposed to get snow. I was promised snow, and there is snow like 5 minutes from my house, but instead I just have a sheet of ice. If you walk out on my driveway, it looks like snow, but you don't even make footprints because it is just pure ice. So anyway, I don't know that I'm going to be going anywhere today. But while I was waiting on us to figure out what we were going to be doing as far as work was concerned, I was able to finish Heavenly Bodies, and I really enjoyed this. I waffled a little bit on my rating just because there were moments as far as the fantasy elements were concerned and like the pacing of the story that I did not just love. I felt like it was trying to do a lot, and it didn't necessarily always blend in a way that I loved. And sometimes some of the like found family aspects and things, I just wanted a little bit more character development. But at the same time, this is a romance book at its core, and I think that it does the romance incredibly well. Like, I would die for this couple. I feel like they were just drop dead, swoon worthy, but also banter filled and kind of stabby all at the same time, which you guys know is one of my favorite things in a fantasy romance. This definitely has a stabby female main character. One thing that I did not absolutely love is when the relationship got to be a little bit more hot and heavy. She lost a little of her stabbiness, and I wanted her to keep that grit, keep that fire, regardless of the fact that she was with a man. And she gets that stabbiness back, but I really loved Alara's character. I thought that their banter was top tier. This has so many quotable moments in it. I think I read you guys a few of the quotes here and there, but like, I'm gonna tell you, there are so many like pink tabs in this, and the pink tabs are moments between the two of them, just like things that made you melt or made you laugh or made you be like, oh my God. And then there were also a lot of like darker blue tabs toward the end, which started off as an emotional damage tab, but I did not do like a crying, screaming, throwing up or like a drool worthy moments kind of tab. So that ended up kind of encompassing all of that, because there were some of the things that Enzo said said that was like, man, if I could find me a man that said those kind of things to me, yes. But I liked the ending. I think that was part of the reason I was a little on the fence about whether or not it was 4 stars or 3 stars. I think I enjoyed it enough. It is going to get a 4 star, but the ending had a couple of tropes that I don't usually love. However, I think I'm okay with the way that they were done in here. I think that the setup made it okay, but definitely had a couple of tropes that I don't particularly love. So I'm curious to see, while the setup made them okay in my head, does the continuation keep them okay? We'll find out. There is another book already out in this series, and I think that there is a third one coming. I forget when it's released, but I absolutely will be continuing on in this series. I would highly recommend this if you are an enemies to lovers fan. I will say this is a slow burn in the relationship, but not necessarily the development of feelings, if that makes sense. And I do think that it was a cool world and a cool magic system. So I would definitely recommend this. I enjoyed it a lot and I am excited to continue on. But I'm gonna go for now because I need to figure out what we're doing as far as work. Do I need to work on some patients? Do I need to get some people rescheduled? Then I will come back to you guys later and we will find out what I'm going to be reading next. Morning all. So while I was waiting on my coffee to finish making, I wanted to tell you guys that I have now done another spin and who I'm going to be reading from next. So next up is going to be Becca from Becca in the Books. I'm so excited to be reading her favorites. Love Becca, but this is extra exciting because she actually had on her list a sequel that I have been dying to get to. You may remember that I read Final Strife last year and it was actually on my most surprising books of the year. I quite enjoyed it. This book is really hard to explain. Basically, there is a caste system of red bloods, blue bloods, and ghost or clear bloods. The clear bloods are considered like the scum of the earth. They actually have their hands and tongues removed so that they aren't able to do anything that could overthrow the empire. The reds are definitely the like higher class of people and they have magic, and then you have blue bloods as well. And it's just a really interesting type system. It's African inspired. I really enjoy the world. I was actually really surprised and enjoyed the first book a lot. So I'm excited to move on to Battle Drum. Becca said that the sequel was even better than the first book in her opinion, so fingers crossed that that holds true for me as well. I have actually ordered this from Goldsboro. I originally had the first book in the slipcover edition, and while I don't love slipcovers, I prefer the UK covers to the US covers. And I really wanted to get Battle Drum in that same matching edition, and I thought that because I wasn't a sub anymore that I wouldn't have access to that, but they actually did have stock left over. So I have ordered this from Goldsboro. Definitely not going to be here by the time that the vlog is finished, so I've left the cover up here for you guys. Today is going to be just a pretty chill day. Well, I say chill. We are having another snow day. So I have been off for 2.5 days now due to ice. It's not really snow, it's just pure ice. It's been a little crazy at work because they are scrambling to try to get everything rescheduled. We are having to stay late. We may have to work weekends. It's been a little bit of a mess. So I've spent most of my morning just trying to get all of that situated, all of the patients from today kind of dealt with and figured out when we're going to reschedule them. And then I will be back at noon tomorrow. So I am going to drink the coffee. It is much needed. Hopefully have got everything situated now, so I'm going to sit down with Battle Drum and get some reading in. Hello, hi. So I was a knot on a log pretty much all day long. It's now 8 o'clock and I checked in with you at like 9 a.m. this morning. I did have to work for a couple of hours and then I just kind of hung backstage and we chatted, did some sprints, but I actually did read a little bit of Battle Drum today. I think I've made it to 35%. That sounds right. And my initial impressions of this are overall positive. I do think right now it's a little slower than I would like for it to be, especially since I remember book 1 being so fast paced. Honestly, figured that it would just hit the ground running. It would be so fast paced. We'd be learning all of these things, and we are, but like, I don't know, it's just in the most boring way possible right now. Like, it's not, I guess that's mean, but it's not like really gripping me. I'm not really wanting to pick it back up. I'm getting a little annoyed at the characters, and I don't know why. It feels so much more YA right now than it did in the last one. I don't know. We've got a new point of view introduced and I'm still unsure about if I feel like that's even really necessary, and we aren't, like, our characters aren't together right now, so I'm unsure. My ticket's out, but I'm cautiously optimistic. So we're going to keep reading this. I'm going to lay in bed, honestly, for a little while. I'm going to be a super lazy kid and probably use my Kindle like stand and clicker and just pop in the audiobook and read along. Because honestly, we do super cozy in this house. You can actually see the stand right there. So don't judge me. Tomorrow I do have to go back to work. I don't have to go until 12 though. So should be able to get a little bit of reading done in the morning. Hoping to finish this soon. So please give me encouraging vibes. I just got done writing with Cody Rixby and he kicked my butt just a little bit. But while I was recovering, I figured what better way than an out of breath Mel to tell you a little bit about Battle Drum. I am about 50%, actually I take that back, I am exactly 50% of the way into Battle Drum and I'm liking it better now than I did the last time I checked in with you guys. I still think it's a little bit slower. I'm not quite enjoying it as much as I did the first time. I think that it's because all of our characters are pretty much separated right now and so I feel like we're just not getting a lot of that like relationship moments that I really enjoyed in the first book. However, I do like that Scylla is a different part of the world and so we're getting to see that expansion of the world and the world building. We're getting to see all of the different bloods and magic systems and I'm quite enjoying that side of things, but I'm very bored in a Norse point of view. I'm intrigued by the new point of view that we have. It's been kind of brutal so far and I'm intrigued by it, but I'm also not loving it either. So I can't really figure out what it is that I'm not just loving, screaming, crying, throwing up over, but right now it's just kind of like meh. Mediocre, but I'm still enjoying it. I don't want to DNF it or anything like that. So I put my t-shirt back on and I am going to go sit down on the couch, cool down a little bit, drink my water, and hopefully finish this here in the very near future. Okay, so I have now officially finished Battle Drum by Sarah L. Arifi, and I think I'm going to end up giving this one a 3-star. I didn't love it as much as I was hoping to. I was really hoping it would be a 4-star. I heard that it was like better than the previous one, and for me, I was bored for a lot of it. I also felt that it was a decent bit repetitive. We would learn something in one character's point of view, and then we would flip to a different character's point of view and be told the same information all over again, and that got a little bit annoying. I felt like the dialogue was a little bit more stilted in this one. I will say that I really liked the expansion of the world. I thought that that was really well done. Some of the reveals didn't feel as well set up as I wanted them to, so it wasn't that it was not shocking, but I felt like I should have been able to be shocked and then still be like, okay, well, I see that now that I know it, and I didn't feel that way. Overall, I still like the story, I still like the characters, but I was not as like enamored by it as I was the first one, so I think it's gonna get a 3-star, but I do think that I will continue on to the final book in the series. I think it's called An Ending Fire. I'm not really sure when it comes out, but I know it already has a cover and everything, so it should be coming out pretty soon. Enjoyed it. Not a huge love, but I did enjoy it. So I will be doing another spin. I'm probably not going to do it right now because I'm kind of tired, but I will share it with you guys once I have done another spin. We'll see who I'm going to be reading from next and what book I'm going to be reading. Okay, so I really don't have much to talk to you guys about. I just got up from the most glorious nap. I have been so tired recently. Ollie got a little bit injured earlier this week, and so I've been staying up with him because he wasn't feeling very good. And anyway, we had Ice-Mageddon. You guys have already heard about Ice-Mageddon, I think. And so my HelloFresh did not deliver. I had 2 boxes not show up, and one of them actually did show up, but it was 4 or 5 days late. Not eatable at that point. So what I did is I went to the grocery store because I was really excited about these recipes. I went to the grocery store, I got the ingredients for one of the recipes, and that is what we are going to make. It is the crunchy Italian chicken sheet pan bake, however you say that. And it's just basically a crunchy chicken with some like Italian seasoning and some green beans and potatoes. And I am so excited to make this. So let's get cooking. Hello friends, so I finally have an update for you guys, and I thought that I had already filmed this update, honestly, and now I can't find it on my memory card, so we're gonna do this again, and hopefully I remember everything that I had to say. But I did another spin, and my next booktuber is going to be Cassidy. I was really hoping that I would land on Cassidy, because if you like my taste, you'll definitely like Cassidy's as well. Like I said, we just read so similarly, we have such similar favorites, so I was very excited to have her pop up. And for Cassidy, I'm gonna be reading Emperor's Blades by Brian Stavley. I have tried to pick this book up so many times and just had other priorities, other things that got in the way, things that kept me from reading it. And I'm beyond thrilled to actually have an excuse to pick this up, to read it in its entirety, and to hopefully love it. I actually am about 40% of the way through it as of right now. Like I said, I lost the clip where I was about 50 pages in. Basically, this is following 3 siblings and the children of the emperor, and we kind of have them in each of their respective places. The daughter is currently still at the capital. One of the sons, who is the heir to the throne, has been at this school learning the ways of their god, I believe. And then we have the other son who is training to become a soldier. And one day they get a message that the emperor has been murdered, and things start to spiral with the implications for the 3 of them. Who is going to sit the unhewn throne? Who's allowed to sit the unhewn throne? And what does that mean for the empire? There's definitely some politics going on in this, which I'm really appreciating so far. It starts off super strong with some horror-like elements and a really cool magic system. The prologue absolutely did it for me. After that, things do start to slow down a pretty good bit. The magic is definitely there, but more so in the background. I do think that there's some cool creatures, and I like the writing style. As of right now, it is a bit slower than I was expecting it to be, especially probably till about the 30th percent mark. I was interested, but I just wasn't as engaged as I wanted to be. And I'm like, okay, well, it must be me. There must be something that I'm missing, because I've heard incredible things about this book. I'm happy to say that after reading it a little bit more today and getting a little further in, reading not only with the audiobook, but also on my Kindle, I am starting to become more invested in these characters and what's going on in their lives right now. I definitely think that there's going to be a lot of setup in this first book, and I forget all of the kids' names. Let me look those up because I feel like I need to be talking about them by name. Okay, so Caden is the heir to the unhewn throne. We're really not getting a lot of him in the monastery, and I actually think as of right now, his point of view is my favorite because there's a lot of the magic and the lore and things coming in there. We're seeing more of Valen, who is training to be part of the Ketrol, I think, which is the soldiers, and they actually fly these winged hawk things that are huge. They're giant. But even though his point of view is interesting, I'm not loving the side character dynamics right now. I don't know what it is, but it's interesting, but I'm just not 100% invested. And then we also have Adair, who is the daughter, and she is kind of more in the thick of the politics and dealing with the direct aftermath of her father's death. So far, I'm liking it. I'm not feeling 5-star feels right now, but I'm definitely still really enjoying it, and I'm excited to continue reading. I think that's what I'm going to do for the rest of the night because I am absolutely beat. The weekend was not long enough. I spent it with a migraine, and so I'm just like, oh, I'm so tired. But migraine is gone, so I'm going to get back to reading. Okay, so I have officially finished The Emperor's Blades by Brian Stavley, and I really enjoyed this one. I think it was a little bit of a slow start for me, and mostly that was probably because I haven't read an epic fantasy in a little while, and it took me a little while to like get my bearings and get reacclimated to a lot of information in a little bit slower plot. I will say that I do think this was a little slower than I was expecting it to be. It is a lot of setup, but I think that that's going to make book 2 even bigger and better in my opinion. I do remember saying that I didn't like Valen's point of view as much, and probably within like 2 chapters of me saying that, I changed my mind and I actually decided that I really did like his point of view. We got to know the side characters a little bit better, which definitely helped me. I think that was a lot of where I was struggling, is they just didn't feel fleshed out enough in my opinion, but that did start to improve, especially after we got to like the trial scene. That was so good. Speaking of the trial scene, this book has some really dark, like gruesome imagery in it, but in a really cool way. I liked that part quite a lot. I will say that I wish that Adair, I think that was her name, the daughter, I wish she just had more page time. I liked her point of view, but she was probably 10-15% of this book at best, whereas Valen was like 60% and then Caden the rest. So this definitely felt like Valen's story, Valen's setup, which surprised me based on the fact that Caden is supposed to be the king and Adair is kind of the one in the middle of all the politics, figuring out in the city what happened to the emperor. I just was a little surprised at the proportions, I guess, of the story, but I do remember Cassidy saying that Adair was a bigger part of the second book and that's why she liked it so much better. So I'm hoping to get to the rest of the series really, really quickly. That was one of my goals for 2024, was to try to read series a little bit closer together so that I continued to enjoy them, remembered everything that was happening. I don't know that I will be able to binge this series just because of everything that's going on right now in life, but I do want to read it within the next 2 to 3 months at maximum. I want to be continuing on with this series. So I think this is going to be a 4-star for me. I didn't absolutely love it. It didn't hit me in all the feels. I really appreciated the world. I really liked the characters in this. And so I'm hoping that book 2 just blows me away. I don't really have anything more for you guys right now. I really should be using this time to do another spin, but honestly, I don't know where my phone is. So we're going to do the spin later and I will come back to you guys and let you know what we're going to be reading next. So I ended up doing a quick spin this morning because I needed an audiobook. You guys know that I love me some audiobooks on my long way to work. And I ended up getting Reagan from Peruse Project. I'm really excited to have gotten Reagan. There were a couple of books on her list that I could have gone with. She had the entire Last Fits in the Fool series, which I still need to start, but I'm just not sure that I'm ready for that kind of pain right now. I don't know that I'm ready to kick off 2024 with that much pain. So I ended up going with Swordcatcher instead. This is the adult debut from Cassandra Clare. Everybody knows who Cassandra Clare is. I don't have to tell you. This is a fantasy story about a boy that is plucked out of the slums and given an opportunity to be the prince's swordcatcher, which is basically a person that in times of potential danger or extreme danger, he steps in and assumes the role of the prince, and that way he's in danger instead of the prince. And he kind of follows him around like a brother. And then we also have a different point of view where we have a female physician who is just trying to figure out what's going on with one of her really good friends / sister, and there's not really much else that I know of to tell you about this. I actually did get 30% of the way into this today between listening at work and to and from work, and I don't really understand the hype right now. I feel terrible saying that. I'm gonna put this down because it's a little too shiny. But I'm bored. I'm probably 35% of the way through and I have found none of the plot. I don't really understand where this is going. It's just been setup after setup after setup, but I also don't feel like we're setting anything up. It feels very slice of life. And while I appreciate a groundwork, I appreciate setting the scene, I appreciate getting to know the characters and their backstory, I'm bored, and I also don't feel like I'm getting to know the characters super well. And so that's a little bit sad for me because I know Cassandra Clare can write good characters. I know that she can write a compelling world and a really fast-paced, fun plot. So I'm not sure if that's just her leaning into the adult like world building side of things or why exactly it seems to be so slow to me. Right now, the most interesting parts, the best world building that we've got in those like epitaphs or whatever they're called, the beginning of the chapter where you get like this little snippet about the world and what's kind of been going on in the history, that I'm finding really intriguing. But when we get to the main parts of the chapters, I'm so bored. And I don't know, I wanna love it. Like, this is one of the biggest books of last year, I feel like. It's the high anticipated, but I'm just over here crushing everyone's hopes and dreams like usual. So no one's surprised. Like I said, I'm gonna continue. I'm not disliking the book. I'm just not super engaged. However, we did just get to a point where our 2 points of view have met up and I was interested in that interaction. So I'm hoping now is where the plot's really gonna kick off and we're gonna get to know our characters a lot better. There's gonna be more going on. And I think that I could really like it if that happens because I like Cassie Clare's writing style. This is not a new to me author, somebody that I'm like, I don't like the writing, I don't like the plot, I don't like the characters, I don't like this book. I like her writing and I do believe that she can pull it off. I'm just waiting for it to happen, if that makes sense. So we're gonna keep waiting, we're gonna keep reading, and I'll let you guys know when I'm a little bit further into it. I really wanna love Reagan's favorite. Time for an update because I've officially finished Swordcatcher. I have very mixed feelings on this book. I think that the ideas here were so much fun. We have a guy that is able to take on the persona of the prince. We have like the mafia in the slums. There is an old magic that has been wiped out of the land that is slowly starting to stir once again. A lot of really cool ideas in this. However, this book is way too slow. The entire book was set up, which I'm not entirely unused to in an epic fantasy, but we're talking like that much setup, the whole thing. And I just didn't feel like that was necessary. It felt like it was way too long and way too drug out for me. I kept waiting even at the 60, 70, 80% mark. I was like, okay, where is the plot? Like, when are we going to get to the point where things actually have stakes and actually feel like they matter? And it took most of the book before we got there. And so I think it just moved way too slowly for me. Despite having a lot of really good ideas, I was mostly bored. I don't think it was poorly written or anything like that, but because there was not a whole lot going on in the plot, I needed the characters to shine, to stand out a lot more, and I just don't feel like I ever got that. Connor was probably the one that I felt like had the most personality, and it was just a very much so Prince archetype. Kel was very much so the Prince's brother archetype. Nobody really seemed, in my opinion, to have as much depth as I wanted them to. And I feel like I'm gonna get some shade for this because it's Cassandra Clare, and I know that this is such a loved book, and I hate that I didn't like Reagan's favorite. Bree from Four Paws in a Book also really enjoyed this book. So definitely go check their channels out because I think both of them have incredible taste, and I can 100% see why people would enjoy this book. It just was not my taste. It was just a little too slow and drawn out for me. I think this is also one of those books that has the type of politics that I don't really love, where we do a lot of talking, but you don't necessarily see the consequence of the conniving. And so that tends to be a little too slow for me. So hopefully that helps you decide whether or not you would like this book. I think I'm gonna end up giving it a 3-star. I don't feel like there was anything inherently wrong with it, but I was just mostly bored and ready to not be reading this book anymore. So don't hate me, I'm sorry, yeah. Okay, so my camera was extremely rude and I did not realize cut off on me while I was telling you guys what my next spin was going to be. But my next spin ended up being Leanne from Literary Diversions. She's a channel that I've just recently started watching and just love her energy. She's so much fun. She always seems to be having a blast, and she's doing Fits Along this year with, as you guys know, I love me some Robin Hobb, so obviously she must have good taste. But on her list, I think I'm gonna go with the Kaiju Preservation Society. I actually just bought this, so it's perfect timing. I didn't buy it for this video. I just happened to pick it up and then saw it on her list and was like, ah, this is perfect. This is gonna be my 3rd John Scalzi book. I DNF'd Lock-In and I read and really enjoyed The Dispatcher. I think he definitely has a bit more of a quirky writing style. I'm about 20% into this so far, and it is very, not cozy, but just kind of quirky, I guess. It feels like Andy Weir meets Jurassic Park in a way. We start off with this guy who's working for this delivery company, and he ends up getting fired and is trying to find another job, but while he's doing that, he is delivering food during the middle of the pandemic. And he gets offered a job to go work with large animals. He signs a non-disclosure agreement, and he ends up going and realizing that he is now working for the Kaiju Preservation Society. And I'm enjoying this so far. It's definitely a quick, fun, easy read, but I do feel like it's a little bit too quirky for me right now. It is very, very humorous, and typically humor doesn't work super well for me in my books. I think the only one that I've really just loved the humor in was Project Hail Mary, and that one, even though it was humorous, still felt like it had a lot of plot and science behind it. So far, I haven't really found the plot of this one yet, and I think that it's just a little bit too cozy, quirky for me right now, but I've heard that it definitely gets less cozy as the book goes on. It does have a lot of pop culture references though, and I think that that is one of the things that's bothering me the most. I don't mind pop culture references in my books, but more so when it's like one here or one there that makes sense. But this has so many in them, so many pop culture references, and they're constant so far. So I was like, I'm gonna need you to tone that back just a little bit. But I'm enjoying this. It's not very long, so I should be able to finish it pretty quickly. And I hope that it ends up being a win for me because I've heard some incredible things. Okay guys, so I wanted to give you guys an update on Kaiju Preservation Society. Unfortunately, I think I have decided that I'm going to DNF this book. Not because it's a bad book. I definitely see where it has the appeal for a lot of people. I definitely see where people love it and eat it up and are just completely obsessed with it. I get it. It's just not the book for me. It's way too quirky, way too much like slide in humor, too much pop culture references. It's just not, it's too cozy for me. It's not what I was expecting or hoping that it would be. I wanted more plot, and we are 50% in, and there is absolutely no plot. It's more of just, this is what we're doing. We're hanging out with some kaiju. This is how we take care of them kind of thing. And it's just not working for me. So I do think I am going to put it down about halfway. Yeah, it's just not the book for me. I don't really have a whole lot more to say on that one. But I did want to talk to you guys because you are on my phone, which means I can't do the spin now. So I did another spin, and I ended up with what I think is going to be the last book of this vlog, and that was Petrick from Petrick Leo. Petrick is kind of the guru of all things indie fantasy. He works with Broken Binding. He does a lot of like indie fantasy reviews. He reads a lot of epic fantasy. His favorite book last year was The Will of the Many, which was also my favorite book of last year. So I'm hoping that we have another book in common. Looking at his list, there were quite a few that I could have picked. Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. What else was on there? I forget, but the one that I think I'm going to go with is Blood Over Bright Haven. I do have this at home, but I also have the ebook copy of it. I think Jamie gave it to me for Christmas, and I've just been really excited to read it. This is a school setting, and it also just, I've heard a lot of really good things about it. I don't really know much else other than that. I didn't love Sword of Kaigen, but I think that that was more just the type of like setting and plot of it just wasn't really for me. So I'm hoping this one works a lot better, but we're going to see. I think I'm going to start that today. I'm going back into work here in a minute, and we're going to see how I feel about it. Good morning, everyone. I am on my way to pick up some coffee because I need coffee in my life this morning. It is early. It is 7:20 and I'm on my way to work, but I wanted to give you guys a quick update because yesterday while I was at work, I was able to read a little bit of Petrick's favorite, Blood Over Bright Haven. Did not bring it in the car with me, but this is the newest M.L. Wang. This story was one I was a little bit wary of because I did not love Sword of Kaigen. I think for me, it was just a little too slow moving, a little bit out of my, like, I couldn't relate to the main character, and so I didn't love it. But I've heard incredible things about this one, so I was excited to pick it up. It opens with a huge bang with this group of settlers trying to cross this frozen lake, but there is the blight that is after them, and the blight seems to be this thing that just like gets you and bursts you into 1,000 molecule pieces of blood. I don't know how else to put it. And so that scene was quite good. I really enjoyed that. It was very high tension. Even though we didn't know our characters, you could feel that the character that we were following did. And so I liked that quite a lot. And then we move into this point of view, Skyona, I think is how you say her name, and she is training and about to sit the test to be the first female high mage ever. Only once a decade are females allowed to even take the test, and she is this decade's female. She's kind of full of herself. She knows she's got it, but she's also really nervous, as she should be. High mages are the ones that kind of do all of the research in this world, so the world we're in has a barrier against the blight, but it is also very technologic, but powered by magic. So it is technology, but it's not powered by electricity and energy the way that we're accustomed to, the way an urban world would be. It's all powered by magic. And she is hoping to be a research high mage that helps figure out how to make things work and how to keep the barrier up, keep the trains moving, that kind of stuff, and create new innovations for this world. The magic system in this is really interesting. It is a mix of architecture and coding. They literally have to write a code essentially to make magic do what they want it to do. And I'm honestly having a little bit of trouble following the intricacies of it because it is just a lot thrown at you all at once. You basically sit with her in the first chapter as she's taking this test, and it kind of goes through the magic system. But it is really interesting and unlike anything that I have ever read before, so I'm quite enjoying that part so far. We have slowed down a little bit. Now we're focusing on more of the misogyny behind men not believing that she was good enough to be there, not allowing her to be there. So I think that's going to be kind of the crux of the story, is believing that women are inferior and realizing, and her kind of powering through that and trying to navigate through that mentality. So I'm not very far in. I think only like 100 pages. So I'm going to keep reading it, and I hope it continues on this path because right now I'm really enjoying it. I wanted to check in with you guys because I've made it to halfway of Blood Over Bright Haven, and I have very mixed feelings on this book so far. I think that the first half of this was just not really the book for me, but now that I've hit about the 40% mark, I have really started to become more invested. But my main issue with this is that we are tackling a lot of societal things. We're tackling misogyny, we're tackling racism, we're tackling just like general hierarchies and politics, and there's just a lot going on in this book, and it's very on the nose, which you know is not my favorite thing. I tend to like it when my societal issues are brought into the book and discussed, but they're woven into the world in such a way that it just feels like a part of the culture, and it feels like a part of the story and a part of the plot, but the plot doesn't like completely revolve around it. There are other things and stuff going on. Good examples of this I can think of that I enjoy were like the Poppy War and City of Brass. I feel like those did that pretty well, whereas this is just the whole plot is the societal issues, and there's just so much of it, and every single little thing has to be some kind of big issue that it's too much for me. I think that my issue is I can recognize that this book is doing exactly what it set out to do, and it's doing it extremely well. It's very, very well written. It makes you want to punch the characters because they believe their beliefs so vividly. And I say that I want this to be like a seamless part of the world. This is the whole world in this. With that being said, something happens at about the 40th percent mark that really opens up the scope of the plot and makes people start to question their beliefs and start to think about things in a different way. And the challenging of those beliefs I am enjoying. And I think that the way that the world opens up and the twist that the magic takes, while I should have expected it, did surprise me. And I'm enjoying that part quite a lot. So it's just, it took a little while to get there, but I have been enjoying it more about the 40th percent mark. We're going to see how everything shapes up in the end. I believe this is a standalone. I think all of M.L. Wong's books are standalones. So I'm curious to see how everything is going to wrap up, but we're starting to get some character growth and development, which I'm really appreciating. And I don't know, we'll see. It could be a 3-star, it could be a 4-star. It just kind of depends on how the second half goes. But I am really glad that I am reading this. I think that the writing is super engaging, and I don't want to stop reading. It is time to give my final update on Blood Over Brighthaven and close out this vlog. I ended up really enjoying Blood Over Brighthaven. I was actually editing the clip of me talking about this previously, and I felt like I may have been a little bit too harsh on it. While all of my complaints still stand, I think that you can't dispute that M.L. Wong writes a story unlike any other. She tackles tons of issues, but does it in a really compelling and thought-provoking way, while also making you love and hate all of these characters and really feel for them and want to know what's going to happen to them. And for that, I can absolutely appreciate it. I definitely really enjoyed the character growth and character development that we had throughout this story. I think it ended beautifully and ended in such a perfect way for a standalone, and that's normally something that I don't love in standalones. Usually the endings just feel anticlimactic to me. I always want more, but I think that this was the perfect ending for this story, and I was not disappointed by it. I thought it was done really, really well. I still feel like I wish that the societal issues had either not tackled quite so many or been woven in a little bit more seamlessly, because the societal issues in this are the entire plot. So if that's not something that you really enjoy, if you're like me and like a little bit more escapism in your books, I don't know that this is really going to work for you. I would definitely recommend reading this when you are in the mood for something heavy hitting, when you are in the mood to read about difficult topics and to read about people having their beliefs questioned left, right, and center. And again, I think she does that incredibly well. I tend to prefer a little bit more escapism in my books, but I can appreciate what she did with this. So I think overall, I'm probably going to give this one a 4-star. I thought it was really well done, and I quite enjoyed it. So with that does end up closing out this vlog. That was the last book that I'm going to be reading for this. Once again, I'm always so glad to do these videos. They are definitely my favorite, and I always find books that I love in them. And this year was definitely no different. I found some books that I absolutely loved in this vlog, and am so very glad that I got the push to pick up. I think if you made me just rank everybody from start to finish, because why not? That's kind of fun. The winner is actually going to be Lexi from Books with Lexi. I adored Strange Sally Diamond. Again, I thought that it was really hard hitting, but it just was so compelling and so interesting to me. I loved every second of it. Followed by Rachel from Ravenhair Reader. I thought that Heavenly Bodies was so much fun. I really, really enjoyed it as well. The banter was amazing. Then Cassidy from Covers with Cassidy. Emperor's Blades was just a great epic fantasy that I cannot wait to continue. Probably followed by Petrick. I think that Blood Over Brighthaven, you can't dispute, was an incredible book. Then I think we would have Becca from Becca in the Books with Battle Drum, which was a sequel that I did really enjoy but was a little bit disappointed by. Then Reagan with Sword Catcher. it just was not the book for me, but I can appreciate what it did. Then probably Steph from Steph Loves. I just am not a huge cozy reader, so Bookshops and Bone Dust just really wasn't the book for me. And then Leanne from Literary Diversions. Again, that cozy just did not really work for me, so it was definitely a cozy thing down there at the bottom. But thank you all so very much for watching and hanging out with me. As always, links to my Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads all in the description box below. If you want to let me know that you were just here and hanging out, leave me a heart emoji for everyone's favorites, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!